Hello and welcome to another installment of Comparative Reasoning. We're your hosts, Cedric and Sidra, and today we are reporting that Larry King fell to COVID-19. Sidra was the one that discovered this, and because of that, I'm going to let her pretty much dominate all of this as she gives the details and maybe other, facts you can find on Wikipedia and whatnot, and then I'll give my thoughts on it and certain closing thoughts. So, whenever you're ready, Sidra, go ahead.
So Larry King, who was 87, it was revealed on January 2nd that he had been admitted to the hospital 10 days prior after being tested for COVID-19. He had spent time in the ICU. There aren't a whole lot of details about it after that, but he died on the 23rd in the hospital at Sidra Medical Center. He was 87. He had type 2 diabetes. He had heart disease. He'd had a stroke in 2019. He had a tumor removed, cancer tumor removed from his lung in 2017. So he was the epitome of high risk when it comes to COVID-19. No, it doesn't tell how he got it, but he survived a lot of stuff, but he didn't survive this.
Larry King was a battler. Going through all of that and more, if you want to elaborate on.
Oh, he lost 2 of his children. He's got 5. He lost, I think he had 4 sons and a daughter. He lost one son to massive heart attack, and who was 65, and his daughter, who was 51, to lung cancer. He was married 7 times. He had 7 ex-wives, 5 children. He was on CNN for 25 years, and probably talked to a plethora of all types of people during the process. So, he had a nice ride.
That it?
Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
Larry King. I first heard about him on CNN, and he was, he looked old then. But Larry King, he had a very direct yet soothing voice, calm, never put you on defense. But he was what I considered then, before anyone labeled him that, was the king of interviews. And people name him the king of interviews because of who he's interviewed, how many interviews he's had. No, for me, he's the king of interviews because of how he interviewed. A style that I listened to and watched when he interviewed presidents, governors, mayors, celebrities, even convicts in and out of prison, would-be convicts, those that should have been convicts but escaped. I listened to all of that. And he would play in the background while I played other games. And it was a pretty cool thing. Back then in the 90s, back then, in the early 2000s, his very simplistic style of questioning, and not just simply ask a question, but listen to what the person has to say, and then prove that you have listened by asking a question about that. But still, I could not really grasp his full style. I really couldn't until later, when he would get his own commercials. And he would, what's your name? Where did you live? Where did you grow up? What's your dog's name? Where did you go to school? Who was your first or favorite teacher? Now, I've interviewed you. Now it's time for you to interview others. That clued me in to a lot. That told me his style, because that's exactly what his style was. No, That's what his style is. Larry King's style of interviewing people is an art long lost for ratings. However, Larry King always did ratings above those that sold out for ratings and advertisement. People went to Larry King because, not just because his name, not just because of what station he was on, but because the interview would be fun and or serious. He's able to get deep down in there, ask you the hard questions without necessarily directing anything at you. That's a style that I adopted. That's the style I used when I interviewed a staunch, emotional, hardened, indoctrinated Republican. That's the style I use my more recent, when me and Sidra conversed about her books, and then I turned that on real quick. You can hear it. An interview is just a series of questions. And one of the best interviewers in social media, and I'm going to say this and because I've listened to enough. I know a good interviewer when I hear one. And that's Sunny Secular. She did good. She asked those hard questions, not directed at anyone, but at something. What is this? Why is that? Can you explain? Asking simple, direct questions, not of judgment, but of curiosity. This poked me curious. I'm going to ask you about that. Everyone can be a great interviewer, but it takes the ability to remove your emotions from it, because what their answer is and their life is nothing personally against you. Sunny Secular and others, including me, are able to do such a thing. Larry King was a master at it. The best interview for me in terms of fun and memorable, and although it's going to sound cliche, but it was Snoop Dogg. That was one of the best. Larry King clearly wasn't exposed to certain foods. He just wasn't. Snoop Dogg came in late. That's one thing. He came in late. He was on CP time. But when he got there, you know, he said he had to stop by a local place. Come on now. And I know that's true. I know for a bona fide fact, an unmitigated fact that is true, that he stopped at a local place and got some grub. I don't know if he went in or not. He might have sent somebody else. But it was true. It was a local place. And he got a box for Larry King. Larry King was stunned. He was visibly stunned and taken aback, like somebody bought me some. And here's the thing, if you're a black person and you got some modicum of money, which I know is a rare thing to hear, it's almost an oxymoron, a black person with money, you know, just because you got some celebrities out there that are rich don't mean black people are rich. Just because one black person was president don't mean all black people are, can be, and will be president, as those Republicans would say. As I've heard them, well, you know, you got him as president, I guess all you going to be president. So it's just all you thing. That's why when I ask my questions in my videos, they're simple. But Snoop Dogg, he bought him that food, and he told him what was in it. Some collard greens, cornbread.
You like that cornbread?
Yeah. And you could tell Larry King had never had Southern, quote unquote, Southern fried cornbread. It's baked, yeah, but in the Black South, despite you knowing things are baked, you almost you want to call things fried. You just when I was growing up, it was Southern fried cornbread. That's what it was called. So Larry King, you know, he was like, he got the greens, and he looked at him kind of like, I'm not used to them looking like this. And how do I know that it was a local shop? Because when Snoop Dogg bought it, it was not in, I bought it from my kitchen stuff. It was in the to-go box. And it was leaning to the side. You can tell he been carrying it one way only. It was ghetto-fied up. Larry King, they ate right there on the show, and I love that. That's how you engage with them and your audience. Larry King did that, and he was, and he had to look at Snoop Dogg eat. Like, what you doing, man? Like, you can see, like, what you picking it up with your hands for? Snoop Dogg picking up the cornbread. I'm gonna eat it. And Larry King's like, you can just see him like, what is this? So he tried it himself. He was like, you know what? That is really good. And what's so bad is Larry King. I don't know if anyone ever saw this interview or not, but Larry King went from, he couldn't keep his, I am upper tier decorum. No, the lip smacking was going on. Snoop Dogg was like, yeah, So yeah, that is stuff like that. That's great. And they interviewed Al Gore, and he was asking him questions and things like that. And I think Al Gore was one of the first ones that said, "I've already won the presidency. I've never lost it. I ran, I won. It was never given to me. There's no need to run again." Basically, when you get screwed that bad, you don't need to try again. You know what it is. You know what it is. Al Gore's loss, as Larry King put it, might have been, although he has to say might or seems, but Al Gore's loss to Bush is what you call exposing the business. It's not going to get any better. Larry King knew exactly what was wrong with the system, and he has championed for a while fixing the system. So politely, chill, and whatnot, he called it out all the time. But since it's not on the megaphone of these are your enemies and this is what you must do, it kind of went unheard, despite it being numerous times. Larry King was on CNN so long he helped expose something else. He was on CNN, 25 years was it, Sidra? Mm-hmm. So when he was leaving CNN, he didn't get fired, he left. He did not like it there. He didn't like it. When he was leaving, people thought he was done. They're so used to seeing him on CNN. When he was like, I'm leaving CNN. It was a good run here. I'm going to go and do my own thing. They didn't hear I'm going to do my own thing. They heard I am quitting interviews forever. People get so used to something when there is the most subtlest of changes, they lose their mind and they cannot handle it. And that is one of the biggest problems on this planet. That's why we can't have nice things. People are afraid of change. So much so when someone says, I am leaving this station to go do my own thing, they think that they're quitting for good. Larry King on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and CNN had to announce that he is not quitting what he does. It would just be on another platform. He had to go through that for a month. And people still wasn't believing it. The man knows what he's going to do. He's been doing what he wants to do for all these decades, and people just wouldn't trust him because it's changed to them. Larry King helped explain a lot to me in the most subtlest ways. And Larry King, like many others, for whatever reason, their own, fell to COVID-19. I don't know if he fell to it in a stupid way. I don't know if it was happenstance. I don't know if he did everything right, but in the wrong area. I don't know. I don't know the man personally, and I will not judge him personally because therefore I don't know him. But I will group him in with every other idiot that goes out without a mask if he did that. I will group him in with every idiot that wants to interview someone. They're wearing the mask, but the other person isn't, making your mask ineffective. I can't thoroughly group him in that so much. But as much research as he does, I don't know. Maybe I'd have to. But since I don't know what happened, I'm not going to judge all of him. No, you can't judge an entire person based on one thing. No Trump supporter I could judge entirely up and down every iota of their character based on wearing or not wearing a mask, whether they're racist or not. Because they could be a staunch racist. They could definitely would not wear a mask. But they could instill the things into their children of equality, decency, respect. Those things that when their children hear and actually practice, it goes against the racism that they would otherwise be taught at the table. You want to see a good case of that? Check out the movie Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. That perfectly does it. We all will miss Larry King. Those that watched him knew him through the interviews and whatnot. And I'm not going to lie. I really did at one point wished that I could have gotten so popular that I could have interviewed Larry King. And I would have asked very simple questions. Simple questions. I would hope the interview could be maybe 5 or 10 minutes. You know? I've even watched Larry King hilariously disrespect Trump supporters. Larry King lives on through anyone that wants to do decent, hard-hitting, simplistic interviews. They simply ask questions, listen to the answer, and ask questions based on that answer, but not yet get off track. And that's a difficult thing to do. It is. If you listen to Larry King's interviews, they kind of all over the place. They really are. But the whole thing is to interview that person, get questions out, ask those things that is pretty much on the public's mind. Things that can't be denied that are out there. Now, Larry King's death will do something. It will cause people to be more aware of COVID-19. Those that didn't think about it or whatnot, that just beloved Larry King, they'll think now, it got him. And he was more high risk than me, more high risk than Sidra, more high risk than anyone that I've talked to. The only other person that's right up there with him is my dad. That's the only one that's extremely high risk that I know that's alive. I want you all to know something. When it comes to Larry King's death, it's a lot, his accolades and all of this stuff is going to be spoken of. The awards he's won, the shows he's been on, the people he interviewed. But what needs to be known most, he is just one guy. He is just one person. But he is one of 400,000 people dead from a virus that would have been gone a year ago if people took it serious, if racists weren't allowed to be racist overtly anyway, if former President Trump and everyone in the White House, every governor, every mayor, anyone in office from the lowest to the highest of authorities or positions of service had taken it serious and told everyone to do, what did I say back then? Keep your ass inside. Stop the air travel. That from me came late. Because to me, blindly, I'm like, well, wouldn't you do that? I didn't think anyone would think opposite of that. So I wouldn't mention it because it's too obvious. People sold stocks instead of saving lives. People downplayed it instead of playing it right. Larry King would be alive right now if these politicians weren't politicking, if they weren't exposing the greed, if they weren't getting away with their malfeasance. Larry King and 400 plus thousand people would be here today. 400 plus thousand families would not be grieving. Morgues would not be overran. Refrigerated trucks would not be full. Hospitals would not be overran. Vaccines would not be needed, and they certainly wouldn't be outdated. People would be living their lives thinking nothing is wrong and the government is doing what it does. Let the racists be racist, everyone else be everyone else. Stay in your lane, stay on your side in the United Divided States of America. Put your blinders on. Put the mule covers over your eyes. Look forward, not to the side. And think that everyone is all right because you are all right. Or everyone has it bad off because you have it bad off. Or everyone is great because you have it that bad. You can lie to yourself and you can lie to others. That's what people want. That's what they want to go back to. And I'm going to tell you, Larry King is not here to give the interviews that would expose how that is exactly what's going to happen. Except it's going to go back to normal with deaths on the rise. Because now the dying is beginning. From January 1st, from December 31st to January 1st, when everyone's getting together for that ball drop, the dying has begun. And since people want social distance, which is 19 feet on a non-windy day, which is stay inside, the deaths are going to keep rising. It's going to be an average of 3,900 deaths per day. In 1 year, everyone, it doesn't take a great interviewer to know this. In 1 year, 1% of the United States population died. And that's in the United States only. 1%. And now more are dying each day than it was that year. 2020 was nothing but a number. The day still rages on. This ain't nothing but 2020 part 2. We're all going to miss Larry King. And I looked forward to his interviews whenever I could find them. Whenever YouTube would let them pop up. I would say, let's do Larry King some justice. Let's do the 400,000 plus people some justice. And let's demand that those that can interview certain people in high places, when we see their podcast or whatnot, demand that they ask the really good questions and demand that they ask how to solve these situations, how we can actually get it done in a reasonable small amount of time. Ask those simple and good questions. Listen to their answer. And then ask questions based on that answer. And not trying to catch anyone off guard. Just ask the question to the answers that was given. Remember, there's only one solution to everything, and that solution is you. This has been Cedric and Sidra for Comparative Reasoning. Thank you for listening.